Hello everyone! Since I was very young, I had always had the question why my grandparents never used a computer or a smartphone, given that I myself was very reliant on digital technology. In my doctoral research, I used machine learning to answer this question. Spoiler alert, the answer has a lot to do with cognition, which includes things like memory, reasoning, and visual spatial skills. You may have observed that older adults are less comfortable with digital technology in general. I was having dinner with a family friend who is 80 years old, and because of COVID, many restaurants ask you to scan the QR code to access the menu. This family friend did not like having to use her phone and requested a paper menu. And some of you might have experience teaching your grandparents how to use a computer or a smartphone, and this is usually not the easiest thing for them to learn. When Pew Research conducted a study in 2019, they found that while 100% of American younger adults in their sample were internet users, we still had about a quarter of older adults who were non-users. And older adults who are online tend to use the internet less frequently and for a smaller range of purposes. The phenomenon that older adults are late adopters of innovation had been documented since at least the 1960s. Everett Rogers found that technological innovations tend to diffuse in a society over time, and those who adopt the technology later tend to be older. There's a famous quote, "The future is already here, it's just not very evenly distributed." And the problem with the digital divide is that older adults as a group are less likely to benefit from technological innovations. Such benefits include using Google Maps to get around in a new place, using social media to stay in touch with friends and family, and purchasing things online. To tackle the problem of the digital divide, I'm going to address two research questions. Number one, what predicts internet adoption among older adults? And number two, can I build a machine learning model that performs better than existing theory-driven models? To answer these questions, I used a publicly available dataset from the Health and Retirement Study. It is a large sampled, nationally representative dataset from 2016. We had a large sample size of over 20,000 people, and they were on average 65 years old. We have a binary outcome variable internet use. People were asked this question: do you regularly use the internet for sending and receiving email or for any other purposes, such as making purchases, searching for information, or making travel reservations? The answers were yes or no. We had 283 candidate predictors coming from various domains, including demographics, cognition, assets, debts and income, physical health, mental health, and functional limitations. We proposed a family of machine learning models called penalized models, and they include Ridge, Lasso, Elastic Net, and Adaptive Lasso. The advantage of machine learning over traditional hypothesis testing is that they can conduct feature selection, which is to test hundreds of potential predictors and identify what's really important. They can also prevent overfitting so that we can generalize our findings to new data. To see whether the machine learning models performed better than a theory-driven model, we needed a benchmark. It's something we can compare to. This benchmark model is a logistic regression. It has 3 predictors: age, cognition, and socioeconomics. And these variables were chosen because previous research found that they accounted for about 60% of the variance in technology use. To fit the models, data was split into a training set and a testing set. All models were trained using the same data, and then they were evaluated using data that's never been seen before. Moving on to the results. We found the machine learning models correctly classified internet use 80% of the time. This means that they can correctly determine whether an older adult was an internet user or a non-user based on information about someone's demographics, cognition, and financial resources, etc. The 4 machine learning models all performed at a similarly high level. And the benchmark logistic regression performed at a slightly lower level with a classification accuracy of 73%. This is actually pretty good, considering the fact that it only has access to a few pieces of information. We found that cognitive and socioeconomic variables were deemed as the most important predictors of internet use. Compared to non-users, internet users tend to have better cognition and higher socioeconomic status. For instance, the top 5 predictors consistently selected by all models were the ability to remember and recall, mathematical reasoning, visual spatial skills, and whether someone has a checking account and a retirement account. If you think about it, technology use is a highly cognitively demanding task. Not only do you have to remember the associations between icons and functions, you have to also remember the location of the icon, and make generalizations when you use a different device and the icon looks different. Going back to the question why my grandparents never used digital technology, it was most likely because they had age-related decline in cognition and because they were relatively poor, as they lived in a rural village in China. Both cognition and socioeconomics are sensitive to aging. It's well established that cognition tends to decline as we get older. These declines occur because the brain experiences atrophy as we age, so much so that on average, an older brain weighs 7% lighter than a younger brain. Wealth also tends to decline in older age. As people enter retirement, they tend to consume their wealth. People also have health problems in older age and they incur medical costs. That's why we see this decline in wealth later in life. These cognitive and socioeconomic declines may be the main driving forces behind the age-based digital divide. Both of these factors are very difficult to address. But something we can do to prevent cognitive decline as we age is aerobic exercise. Aerobic exercise strengthens our cognition. Numerous animal and human experiments have found that moderate to vigorous exercise increases brain volume and it improves memory. If you would like to continue to stay on the cutting edge and stay tech savvy as you get older, something you can start doing now to strengthen and preserve your cognition is doing aerobic exercise. It is a scientifically proven intervention that promotes cognitive functioning, which in turn is incredibly important for learning and using digital technology.